The words hit me like a punch to the chest, raw and cold. My daughter, the child I'd poured my life into, wished me gone on her 45th birthday. I stood in her elegant living room, clutching a $250 cake from her favorite bakery, its vanilla frosting gleaming under the chandelier's soft glow, expecting her smile to warm me like it did when she was small. Instead, her eyes were ice, her voice sharp as she said, "Mom, I need you out of my life." The air felt heavy, suffocating, as if the walls of the home I'd helped her build were closing in. My heart shattered, but I held the cake steady, its candles unlit, a silent witness to the betrayal. I've carried this pain, and I know I'm not alone. If my pain speaks to you, join me on her side for more stories like mine. It was October 31st, 2025, and I'd arrived at my daughter Emily's house in suburban Chicago, my arms full with the cake I'd ordered weeks ago from Sweet Heaven Bakery. The receipt, tucked in my purse, read $250, paid on October 15th, a small fortune for a retired teacher like me. But for Emily, my only child, no expense was too great. I'd spent 45 years weaving my life around hers, from sleepless nights rocking her as a baby to the $40,000 I'd given for her wedding to Michael when she was 25 in 2005. The house they lived in, a charming two-story with ivy climbing the brick, was partly mine too, $100,000 from my savings for the down payment, a gift I'd given without hesitation in 2010. I knocked on the door, my breath catching as I pictured her face lighting up, just like when I'd surprise her with her favorite dolls as a child. Emily opened the door, her dark hair pulled back, her expression tight. "Oh, it's you," she said, barely glancing at me, her voice flat, as if my arrival was an inconvenience. I forced a smile, lifting the cake. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. It's your favorite, vanilla with raspberry filling." She sighed, a sound heavy with exasperation, and stepped aside. "Come in, Mom. We need to talk." No warmth, no thank you, just a curt gesture to the living room where the leather couch gleamed under the soft light of a modern chandelier. My stomach twisted, but I followed, the cake box heavy in my hands. We sat, the silence thick between us. The room smelled faintly of lavender from a candle flickering on the coffee table, its flame wavering like my confidence. Emily's house was pristine, every detail curated, marble coasters, framed photos of her twins, Sophie and Ethan, smiling in matching outfits. I'd spent countless hours here, babysitting, cooking, cleaning, all to ease her load. "Emily," I began, my voice soft, "I just wanted to make today special for you." She leaned forward, her hazel eyes locking onto mine, cold and unyielding. "Mom, I've been thinking about what I really want for my birthday," she said, each word deliberate. "And the truth is, I'd be happier if you weren't around anymore." The room spun. My hands gripped the cake box, the cardboard crumpling under my fingers. "What did you say?" I whispered, my throat tight, tears prickling my eyes. She didn't flinch. "You hurt me," she said, her voice like a blade. "I'm tired of you always being here, always needing something from me. I want my life back." My daughter, the girl I'd raised, loved, sacrificed for, was telling me I was a burden. The cake sat untouched, its sweetness now a bitter mockery of the day I'd planned. I stood, my legs unsteady, and set the cake on the coffee table. "Emily, I'm your mother. I've given you everything, my time, my money, my heart." She crossed her arms, her lips curling into a sneer. "That's the problem, Mom. You've given too much, and it's suffocating me. I need you to just go away." Her words echoed, each one a shard embedding itself in my chest. I wanted to scream, to beg her to take it back, but her face was stone, no trace of the little girl who'd clung to me during thunderstorms. Emily left the cake untouched, a forgotten symbol of my love. "Happy birthday," I murmured, my voice breaking as I turned toward the door, leaving the cake behind, back in my modest apartment. The walls lined with photos of Emily's childhood, her gap-toothed grin at 6, her prom dress at 17. I collapsed onto my worn armchair. The cake was gone, tossed in a dumpster on my way home. Its $250 price tag, a wound that burned alongside her words. I'd spent 45 years building a life for her. When she was 5, I'd worked extra tutoring sessions to buy her a $300 violin for lessons she begged for. At 16, I'd paid $1,200 for her SAT prep courses, staying up late to quiz her myself. When she married Michael, I'd emptied my savings for their wedding, $40,000 for a venue with crystal chandeliers and a string quartet, and the house, $100,000 from my retirement fund, money I'd scraped together over decades of teaching third graders. Grading papers until midnight, I opened a drawer, pulling out a folder stuffed with receipts and bank statements, proof of every sacrifice. The wedding invoice dated June 10, 2005 for $40,000. The house down payment wired on March 3, 2010 for $100,000. Babysitting for the twins, countless hours unpaid, while Emily and Michael went on date nights or weekend getaways. When Michael's startup failed in 2022, I'd covered their mortgage for 6 months, $12,000 total, eating canned soup to make ends meet. The twins' summer camp last year, $3,000, because Emily said they deserved the best. I tallied it silently. $156,500 plus years of smaller gifts and support, poured into her life, not counting the love, the sleepless nights, the dreams I'd set aside. My phone buzzed. Emily's name flashed on the screen, but I let it ring. When I finally listened to her voicemail, her voice was sharp, impatient. "Mom, why aren't you answering? The twins need you to watch them tomorrow. Michael and I have plans." I laughed, a hollow sound. She'd wished me gone, yet here she was, demanding my time as if nothing had happened. I didn't call back. Instead, I poured myself a glass of tea, the mug warm in my hands, and stared at the receipts. Something shifted inside me, not just pain, but a spark of defiance. If Emily wanted me out of her life, I'd give her that, but on my terms. The next morning, I dressed in my favorite blue cardigan, the one Emily used to tease me for wearing too often, and drove to the bank. My joint account with Emily, opened for emergencies after the twins were born, held $15,000, my money deposited over years for their unexpected needs. The teller, a young woman named Lisa, greeted me warmly. "Miss Evelyn, good to see you. What can I do?" I smiled, my hands steady for the first time in days. "I'd like to close account number 67241903 and transfer the balance to my personal account." Lisa's eyebrows rose. "That's a significant amount, $15,000. Are you sure?" I nodded, signing the papers with a flourish. The transfer felt like reclaiming a piece of myself, a small victory that made my heart race with possibility. At home, I sat at my desk, the folder of receipts open before me. I called my lawyer, Patricia, a sharp woman in her 60s who'd handled my late husband's estate. "Evelyn, it's been a while," she said, her voice warm but curious. "What's going on?" I told her everything, Emily's words, the cake, the years of sacrifices, the joint account I'd just closed. Her silence was heavy, but when she spoke, her tone was resolute. "You've done enough, Evelyn. Let's protect what's yours." We spent an hour reviewing my will, my $80,000 life insurance policy, my savings, my small condo. I removed Emily as a beneficiary, redirecting everything to a local children's literacy program I'd volunteered with for years. "And one more thing," I said. "I want to explore my rights as co-signer on Emily's mortgage." Patricia pulled up the documents. "As co-signer, you're liable if they default, but you also have leverage. If they're unstable financially, you can push to reclaim the property." I remembered Michael's recent layoff, a detail Emily had mentioned casually last month, expecting my help. "They've missed payments before," I said. "I covered 6 months last year." Patricia's voice sharpened. "That's enough to show risk. If you want, we can start the process to protect your investment." I nodded, the decision settling over me like a shield. "Do it." That evening I stood in my kitchen, the scent of chamomile tea filling the air. I felt lighter, as if I'd shed a weight I'd carried for decades. Emily wanted me gone, but she didn't understand what that meant. not just emotionally, but financially. I wasn't just her mother. I was the backbone of her life, and I was done. The next day, my phone buzzed again. Emily's name. I ignored it, but her voicemail was frantic. "Mom, the bank called." "Why did you close our account?" "We needed that money for the twins' school fees." I didn't respond. Instead, I drove to a travel agency I'd passed countless times, its window plastered with posters of Italian vineyards and Parisian cafes. Inside, a cheerful agent named Maria handed me a brochure. "Where are you thinking of going, Miss Evelyn?" I hesitated, then said, "Somewhere new, maybe Italy. I want to start over." I'd always dreamed of Florence, its art and history calling to me since my college days studying Renaissance literature. Her eyes lit up. "Italy's perfect. We have a program for retirees, $4,500 for a 3-month stay in Florence, with options to extend." I booked it on the spot, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. Back home, I began packing, folding sweaters and books into a single suitcase. My condo felt smaller, less like a home and more like a chapter closing. I thought of Emily as a child, her tiny hand in mine as we walked to the park, her laughter filling the air. Had I done something wrong, raised her to see me as a resource instead of a person? The pain was sharp, but I pushed it aside. I wasn't disappearing because she'd won. I was leaving to reclaim myself. On Friday, Emily showed up at my door, unannounced. Her face was flushed, her voice sharp. "Mom, what's going on?" "The bank said you're trying to take our house." I stood in the doorway, my arms crossed. "I'm protecting my investment, Emily. You wanted me out of your life, remember?" Her eyes widened, a flicker of panic breaking through her usual composure. "I didn't mean it like that," she said, her voice softer now. "I was stressed. The twins, Michael's job, it's been hard." I shook my head. "You said you'd be happier if I was gone. I'm giving you what you asked for." She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. "Mom, please. We need you." The words stung, not because they were heartfelt, but because they were desperate, tied to the money she was losing. I closed the door, my heart racing but resolute. That night I wrote a letter, not for Emily but for myself. It began, "To my daughter who wished me gone. I've spent 45 years loving you, sacrificing for you, believing in you. Your words broke me, but they also set me free." I listed every sacrifice: the $100,000 for the house, the $40,000 wedding, the $12,000 mortgage payments, the $3,000 for camp. I wrote until my hand ached. 15 pages of truths I'd never spoken. I sealed it in an envelope and gave it to my neighbor, Linda, with instructions to deliver it to Emily after I left. Linda, a kind woman in her 70s who'd lived next door for a decade, listened as I explained my plan. "Evelyn, you're stronger than I ever knew," she said, her eyes misty. "I'll make sure she gets this, and I'll tell her you're gone for good." I hugged her, grateful for her support. "Make it dramatic," I said with a small smile. "She needs to feel this." Monday morning, I stood at the airport, my suitcase at my side, a $4,500 ticket to Florence in my hand. The air smelled of coffee and anticipation, the terminal buzzing with travelers. I felt alive, unburdened, as if the weight of Emily's words had lifted. My phone buzzed, Emily again, but I turned it off. The flight to Florence was long, but each mile felt like a step toward freedom. I journaled during the journey, capturing the pain, the betrayal, but also the hope. For the first time in years, I was choosing myself. In Florence, a guide named Luca met me at the airport, holding a sign with my name. "Welcome to your new beginning, Miss Evelyn," he said, his accent warm. The apartment he took me to was small but charming, with terracotta floors and a balcony overlooking a cobblestone street. The scent of fresh bread wafted up from a bakery below, and I felt a peace I hadn't known in decades. Luca handed me a folder. "Here's everything you need: language classes, art tours, social groups for expats. You'll love it here." I thanked him, my voice steady, and that night I slept deeply, the sounds of Florence lulling me into a new life. The next morning I walked to a cafe, ordering an espresso and a croissant. I bought a leather-bound journal for $50, not because I needed it, but because it felt like a gift to myself. As I sipped my coffee, my phone lit up with missed calls, 32 from Emily, 15 from Michael. A text read, "Mom, where are you? The bank's moving forward with the house. Please call me." I deleted it. Linda would deliver the letter today, and Emily would face the truth. Her wish had consequences. Linda later told me Emily sat in silence, stunned by my words, when she read the letter. At noon, my phone rang again. Emily's voice was frantic when I answered. "Mom, Linda gave me your letter. What's happening? Are you okay?" I stood on my balcony, the Florentine sun warm on my face. "I'm fine, Emily. I'm exactly where I want to be." Her voice cracked. "I didn't mean it, Mom. I was angry. Please come back." I laughed softly, not out of cruelty, but clarity. "You meant it enough to say it. Now you'll learn what life is like without me." I hung up, blocking her number. Over the next weeks, I built a routine. I joined an Italian language class, stumbling through phrases with a group of retirees who laughed at our mistakes. I enrolled in a painting workshop, BCD, my first attempt at watercolors since high school. My teacher, an older woman named Sophia, praised my bold strokes. "You paint like someone who's been set free," she said. I smiled, knowing she was right. My savings, now free from Emily's demands, grew steadily. I met with a financial advisor, Giovanni, who helped me invest $50,000 in a stable European fund, projecting a 5% return annually. But Emily didn't stop. A month later, I received an email from a Chicago social worker, Miss Carter, claiming Emily had reported me as unstable and possibly suffering from cognitive decline. My blood boiled. She was trying to undermine my freedom, to drag me back into her orbit. I called Patricia immediately. "She's desperate," Patricia said. "She's hired a lawyer to contest your will and the mortgage claim, saying you weren't in your right mind." I laughed, a sound that surprised me. "Let her try. I'm ready." I underwent a medical evaluation at the U.S. consulate in Florence, a thorough 3-hour process. The doctor, a kind man named Dr. Rossi, concluded, "Miss Evelyn, you're in excellent health mentally and physically. Your decisions are sound, and your daughter's claims are baseless." He sent a report to Miss Carter, who called me the next day. "The case is closed," she said. "We've noted Emily's complaint as unfounded." I thanked her, a weight lifting. Emily's attempt to control me had failed, and now she faced a record of her false accusations. I began writing again, not just in my journal, but a memoir. Titled A Mother's Liberation, Breaking Free at 72, it poured out over months, 300 pages of pain, betrayal, and triumph. I sent it to a small Italian publisher, who responded eagerly. "This is raw, powerful," the editor, Clara, wrote. "It will resonate with so many." The book launched 6 months later, selling 10,000 copies across Europe. Letters poured in from women like me, mothers who'd given everything only to be discarded. "Your story gave me the courage to say no," wrote Anna from Spain. "I left my son's demands behind," shared Marie from France. One evening, as I sat on my balcony, the scent of jasmine drifting up from the street, my phone rang. It was Linda. "Evelyn, Emily's lost the house," she said. "The bank foreclosed last week. They're in a small apartment now, and Emily's working as a cashier in a store to make ends meet." I nodded, a mix of justice and sorrow settling in. The twins were safe, but Emily was learning the cost of her words. "She asked about you," Linda added. "She says she's sorry." I sighed. "It's too late for sorry, Linda. Some bridges burn for good." A year later, I received a letter, the handwriting shaky but familiar. It was from Sophie and Ethan, now 12. "Dear Grandma Evelyn," they wrote. "Dad told us what Mom said to you. We're so sorry. We miss your stories and your cookies. We're proud of you for being brave. Can we visit you in Italy someday?" Tears fell as I read, but they were warm, not bitter. I wrote back, "My dear Sophie and Ethan, I love you always. When you're older, my door is open. Never forget that words matter and love is a choice you make every day. As I reflect now, 3 years after that devastating birthday, I'm 75 sitting on my Florence balcony, the city's golden light painting the rooftops. My book is a bestseller. My savings have grown to $450,000 and my life is full. Friends, painting, Italian classes, and peace. Emily's wish for my absence gave me the courage to find myself. I granted her desire, but in doing so, I gifted myself a new life, one where I'm not a mother defined by sacrifice, but a woman defined by strength. If my story touched your heart, subscribe to Her Side for more stories of courage and renewal. Share your own story in the comments. What would you do if someone you loved pushed you away? Your voice matters and I'm listening.